lined up right behind him. It's a spin. The pass to the tight end all alone. Touchdown, Jamison Gears. And Minnesota's back out front. We saw that play against Bowling Green in Detroit for Gears' first college touchdown last year in Detroit. And he's got another TD today, his second of the season. And Minnesota back out front, 22-17. And Brosmer will take one snap and the kneel down. That is it. Good friends P.J. Fleck and Brett Bielema will run to the center of the football field. Bielema on a dead sprint. He wants to yell at the back judge as he's following him toward the goal line, screaming at the back judge, not happy on the no delay of game penalty, and I'm sure on the PJ and pretty quick hug there. I think PJ realized that Bielema's not in any mood to have any small talk there. But how about that win for Minnesota? They notched the win 25-17.
Mike Grimm, how about that win from Champaign and chronicling all the action, not only in that game, but every Golden Gophers football game, is a longtime card-carrying member of the Love Covenant, longtime friend of ours, Ryan Burns, with Gopher Illustrated, part of the 24/7 sports family. And you can learn more about Ryan and sign up for Gopher Illustrated for football. And there's some basketball stories there, too, by Ryan James, at Ryan Burns MN, at Ryan Burns MN. 4 in a row for the Bo. 4 in a row for Bo Hunting Burnsie. Should it absolutely move to 5 in a row at Rutgers? And good morning.
And good morning. Yeah, it should, in theory. Now, that's in college football these days. You know how crazy it can be with 18 to 23-year-olds. And one of the things I've been talking about this week is there's a little bit of a narrative going on because there's so many connections between these two coaching staffs. You have Ethan Callie-McManus is now the starting quarterback there. You have Greg Schiano gave P.J. Fleck his first ever Power 4 coaching job, follows him to Tampa Bay. You've got both coordinators at Rutgers, have both worked at Minnesota. Their proteges are now the coordinators at Minnesota, and that's where the thing comes into. Wow. We're all human beings, and while they can talk about this week, it's just the next game on the schedule. You know how it is. I mean, you know that you want to be able to go into a place like that and show your former boss or whatever the connection may be that we're better than you. Yep. So Minnesota is a 6-point road favorite. I'll be there in Piscataway on Saturday, and I expect them to win. But Rutgers gets a bye week to prepare. We'll see how fresh they are off the bye.
So Callie-McManus, how is he doing out there?
He's been about the same. I'd argue he's probably been a little bit better, but he's still
strong arm, won't pull the trigger on certain things.
Correct. Yeah. Doesn't get off the first read a lot. Yep. Still has a fastball 95% of the time. He's got 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but he's only completing about, I think it's 54% of his throws. And you compare that to kind of what Max Brosmer's doing, and Max Brosmer's on track to break Minnesota's single-season completion percentage record.
Canners?
Yep, from 2022.
Damn. Well, with Brosmer, I'm glad you brought that up. He's playing so well, and either in conversations with P.J. Fleck or Coy Parrish was in studio here last week, which was super cool. It's laying it out. Takes a second. I'm going to do it a lot shorter here. But there absolutely has to be a transition mentally, and just mentally for sure, from FCS to FBS. You start with North Carolina. I don't care who you're playing. Mm-hmm. It's overall play after play, game after game, week after week, the whole thing. There has to be a transition. And I don't know what that young man pushed through. You know more than me because you watch every single snap, then you watch them all back. But he's playing so well right now. It's kind of sad that it's one and done, you know?
It is. And that's where I think it just goes back to even when they started recruiting him after the season ended and trying to figure out what they were valuing. And one of the Max Brosmer's biggest assets is his high-end processor, his ability to actually get through a progression, his ability to know just a second into it, okay, this look I'm looking for, all right, it's not there. I got to move on to the second read. I think one of the plays I'll remember most about this season is that final touchdown against UCLA in the Rose Bowl to get that victory. Darius Taylor is the 5th read on that progression. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times in the 12, 13 years I've been covering this program where a Gopher quarterback has gotten to the 4th or 5th read in his progression. But that's the kind of quarterback that Max Brosmer is. And yeah, in the early part of the season, it was clear that maybe he was pressing a little bit, or maybe the speed of the game going from playing against Monmouth to playing against Power 4 athletes like North Carolina and Iowa.
Right.
He was pressing a little bit, but certainly on this 4-game winning streak that Minnesota's on, I mean, he's on a heater. He's completing 70% of his passes, no turnovers, which I think is so key in this, and 10 total touchdowns.
3 in a row, right?
3 in a row what?
For no turnovers.
It's been...
Or 4.
It's been 14 quarters since Minnesota had their last turnover, which was a Darius Taylor fumble. He has not turned the ball over.
So Max hasn't since almost
Michigan.
Yeah, there you go. Wow.
And that's
an incredible run.
I mean, that's part of why Minnesota's 4-0 is they are absolutely obliterating every team they face in the take-give. And in college football especially, if you can get a couple extra possessions with an advantageous field position, you're going to be able to win some ball games.
You mentioned Monmouth College. Yeah, you mentioned Monmouth. You know, do you know where I'm going here?
No.
I saw it on social media this morning. They played Kansas basketball.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
You got to find it, man. I mean, Kansas just murdered them.
I bet.
I don't know what happened that led up to this, but Kansas guys dribbling it out by half court. The Monmouth guy's pulls his jersey out, about ready to walk to the bench, just got beat by 50.
Sure.
Decides he's going to run behind the guy, steal the ball with 5 seconds to go, and then run down and dunk.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, well, the Kansas guy followed him, but he's not going to foul him. You know, where let's not make this dumb. But then the Monmouth guy started yelling at him, and I didn't watch the game, so I don't know what led up to somebody being that frustrated, losing by that many points to a team who could win the national championship. But he took offense to something. So, you know, the dribble it out, everybody's giving 5.
Yep.
Well, my man comes behind him and steals the ball, the Monmouth guy, goes down and dunks, and then starts yelling at, like, the Kansas guy in the bench. So these kids these days,
Where was that type of energy and effort in the first, 38 minutes of the game?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Mr. Brosmer, like why it's not there for everything involved collegiately with Monmouth.
Hey.
Or Towson State, or Farley Dickinson, or Quinnipiac. I have no idea.
I love that for you.
What's the identity of the Gophers offense?
Right now, it's a passing-oriented offense where it's been a change, certainly, and that's where Brosmer's 38 pass attempts away from breaking Tanner's single-season Fleck era passing record. Now, I'm just using the Fleck era for it, but he's throwing the ball a lot, and that's where they have struggled to run the football. And for whatever reason this year, your favorite Minnesota moving company has been a much better pass protection unit than they have been in run game execution. It's a lot of the same things that they love to run inside, outside zone, but they haven't been executing it as well. And that's where, if you give Brosmer time, he's been able to kind of dissect these defenses. And that's where that is the identity right now. You have Daniel Jackson, who's third in the Big Ten in receptions, looks to be on track for back-to-back all Big Ten seasons. But then you've also got the emergence of Darius Taylor as a receiver, where his 43 receptions lead all Big Ten running backs. His 43 receptions, I believe, are second amongst Power 4 backs. He has been a huge outlet for them on third down, in the red zone, whatever it may be. And if you can have a running back that can catch passes like that to go with Daniel Jackson, we've seen the emergence as well of Elijah Spencer, who had 6 catches in back-to-back games, including 5 for first downs last week. They are now a pass-to-run offense, which is very odd to say about a PJ Fleck team.
Ryan Burns, at Ryan Burns MN, via Twitter. Follow him as 9 to Noon does. Gopher Illustrated, part of the 24/7 sports family. You can read a lot of stuff there. I looked at a lot last night and this morning, including, I believe there's a preview of the basketball game against Oral Roberts this evening. I think Ryan James wrote that. He does really good work, too. I've never met him, but follow him from afar. And just quick twitch, because I know you follow it at least in ancillary fashion. Ben's team, like, you got to get these non-conference games right, because these conference games are going to be tough and a lot of transfers and stuff like that. What do you think of the squad?
Well, it's unfortunate. I think the news came out today that Frank Mitchell, who's their transfer big, trying to replace Pharrell Payne, is going to be week to week now with a shoulder separation.
Oh, geez.
So Parker's going to have to play some big time minutes in these games coming up, including tonight. Now, I still think they're a team in transition. You've got the Oregon kid who's certainly come in and he's got the green light from anywhere. He's not the most physically imposing guy, I would say. I mean, you look at him and you see some of the things he can do athletically, quick twitch, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, they've got some things. But yes, to your point, these games where you're not picked to do much again here in the Big Ten, but these are the type of games at home that you're going to have to get if you're going to have some momentum going into Big Ten play.
Back to the football team for a second, off the Brosmer piece. So who's next, or like what's next at quarterback for these guys?
Well, I think the transition plan is for after the season to really go all in on their true freshman, Drake Lindsey, who they signed out of Arkansas just a year ago. He's been kind of the number 2 there since the moment he stepped on campus, and that was one of the talking points from PJ to Brosmer is, yeah, you're going to come in to be the guy, but we think we have the next guy, and you have to teach him the ways of how to be a successful quarterback. And that's where it's been everything in the film room to learning how to lead the team. And I know that there's a lot of people behind the scenes excited about his development with that. But, I've been there before where I think there were a lot of expectations for Ethan Kaliak-Manis. Now, I tell you, I think Lindsey's got more of a processor than what Ethan has, which is probably the biggest thing holding back Mr. Kaliak-Manis. But the transition of power in the offseason, I don't expect Minnesota to go out and get another Brosmer type, the alpha that comes in to be the guy. I think there's a lot of expectations for what can Drake Lindsey do off his redshirt season.
Can you do me a favor, and the listening Gopher-loving public a favor, and sell us on the idea of PJ's team running the table out the back end of this season, whether it's go beat Kaliak-Manis. Penn State has been having some significant issues in recent weeks, and the quarterback situation in Madison's just hideous. Can we go beat Kaliak-Manis, upset Penn State at Huntington Bank, and then go grab the axe from Bucky and call it a 9-win season?
Is it within the realm of possibilities? I mean, it certainly is. I mean, you're favored
You're
by.
not selling me on it yet.
Well, if you want me to be Mr. Sunshine, here's the way it goes.
It's a beautiful day.
You're able to win this weekend. You're a 6-point road favorite. You go in a very banged up Rutgers team. You get 5 in a row. You get the bye week, and then you get to play a Penn State team that, to your point, looks really good. They're in the. I think they were.
They are in the rankings. Yeah, they're like 6th or 7th.
But you get a bye week to prepare for them. They're going to be on the 5th game in a row. And I remember what happened last time that Penn State came in this highly touted into Huntington Bank Stadium in November of all times. I mean, if you can run the table against them, which they are a very talented team, their front 7 gives me a lot of worry, then you get to go into Black Friday on national television, 11 a.m. spot, and you got a chance to make a statement there and end the table that way, because that is a Wisconsin team that, I saw Brett as he came into the studio. They're very much diseased right now, especially with their quarterback play. I mean, I think it's real. I think there's a chance of it happening, but if that is going to happen, this is a team that has to continue to be what their identity has been on this 4-game run, which is they don't turn the ball over and they get 2 or 3 turnovers.
So what? Okay, so say that happens.
Sure.
Like, what's the high-end bowl game?
It'd probably be the Citrus Bowl, which you're going to be a January 1st game against probably whichever one of these teams, a Tennessee, maybe an Alabama, if they don't make it in. I mean, you're going to get a big spot game in Florida on New Year's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of getting in, as in the college football playoff, they had the rankings come out yesterday. There was a lot of things being slotted, a lot of clarity being found yesterday. And, of course, I'm talking about college football. Now, where I am unclear is the idea, so the teams that get the bye, Burnsie, are not just the top 4 teams. For instance, Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami. It actually goes based off of the 4 major conference leading teams, which puts BYU in a bye week. It was kind of weird seeing that. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but I don't think I am.
No, you are correct. That's where each one of these conferences, it's the Big 10, SEC, Big 12.
Yeah, Power 5 bits, right?
Yep, a Power 4 now, and that's
Power 4. Excuse me.
That is exactly how BYU could potentially get the bye week. Now, that's where Iowa State losing last week kind of threw a wrench into this thing. But yeah, that's the nuance of this thing is, I would argue as much as it is you want the bye week just to be able to advance a little bit more because it's essentially an automatic win. If you're one of those teams 5 through 8, you get the opportunity to host a playoff game, which, I mean,
that is kind of sweet that it's actually on campus for those initial games. That'll be so cool.
Imagine if that were to ever happen here. You'd have a December home game, of which I can only imagine what Dinkytown would be like. Imagine if there's even some snow in the air. The national TVs get to see what that would be like. But I think that's the cool nuance of this bit going forward is, yeah, you might not be able to make it, say you're the 2nd or 3rd team in the Big Ten, so say you're Ohio State or, your whichever SE team you want to pick. I mean, you still get to host a home playoff game, which is going to be really cool for fans to see.
Is the Big Ten, I don't want to say unequivocally or undisputed, but are they the best conference in college football this year? I mean, you import a juggernaut in Oregon, but Indiana, are they for real? I'm not interested in playing that game. They're undefeated and they're putting a ton of points on everybody, easy schedule or not. Is the Big Ten the best schedule or the best conference in football this year?
I think you could certainly make an argument. I think them and the SEC, I believe, both got 4 teams in yesterday. And to your point, Indiana is just absolutely obliterating any team that they play. And that's even with the backup quarterback bid. And they finally saw a little bit of consternation thrown their way where they're down 10-0 last week against Michigan State, and then they reel off 47 unanswered. I mean, I think that's part of the cool thing about what college football is now with the portal is this is the parity that everybody has been clamoring for. A team like Indiana goes in year one of a head coach, comes out with 20-25 transfers, and they're playing incredibly, incredibly well, which who would have thought when the schedules came out that a game in 2 weeks between Indiana and Ohio State was going to be must-watch television?
Not featuring Antoine Randall, Jordan Howard, players like that.
Exactly. I mean, that's what makes this thing so beautiful this season is a team like Indiana can come out of nowhere, and they have really gotten their fan base, which has been, I think as we all know, very much a basketball-laden state, a basketball-laden university, to believe in a team, and it's so cool to see things like that.
Well, Ryan Burns at Ryan Burns MN via Twitter, Gopher Illustrated, and 24/7 Sports, gopherillustrated.com to learn more about the bow hunter and his presentation. The kids, Coy Parrish and Kerry Brown. Coy, true freshman, Kerry, redshirt freshman, I believe, making big plays, and also both semifinalists for the Sean Alexander National Freshman of the Year. 2-part question here. Why is this named after Sean Alexander?
I believe it comes back to when he was doing his thing back in the day. They just wanted to have a Freshman of the Year award.
Okay. Did he play at Alabama?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he was sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, Parrish and I really with Kerry Brown, the redshirt freshman. That sequence he had late, that tackle for loss was massive because momentum had shifted. Crowd was starting to get loud. You were there. You heard it. And the pass defense on the next play, bad throw. So, I mean, it's a pass defense, and he was in the right spot. But nevertheless, he'll get harder opportunities moving forward. But with the future in these two, what do you think?
It's hard to not be excited about that. And if there was a position that I've been more wrong on this year, it has been that safety spot for Minnesota, where I came into the season thinking they're going to be the biggest question mark, arguably, on the entire team. Their strong safeties really didn't play well last year. And then you lost the All-American Tyler Nubin, all-time leader in interceptions, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I've seen this before. It's probably not going to go well this season. And all Danny Collins, the safeties coach, has done has gotten Coy Parrish to play at a level that we haven't seen a true freshman play in a long time. To your point, Kerry Brown last week, even the week before against Maryland, first drive of the game for Maryland, he's the one that comes in on the 4th down, gets the huge stop. You mentioned that last week, his 3rd down tackle for loss. He's the man in the area on 4th down. He's playing at a high level. You can start to get excited about a future where in a couple years, these guys are still going to be here. And if they're playing this well as true freshmen, now I don't know how you feel about the whole PFF bit, but I would agree with their assessment of the grades. The top 2 players graded on Minnesota's defense right now, Coy Parrish and Kerry Brown, both freshmen. I think they absolutely deserve to be on that semifinalist list.
Okay, now, I do think it's fair to bring this up, even though I'm out of touch with the bit, but simply it's the climate of 2024. So in any way, are we sweating anybody in the old transfer portal? and well, seriously, what I mean,
I get it.
Concerns that they get too good, and since NIL gives would be better elsewhere.
Yeah, I think about Parrish. I think about Darius Taylor. Those are ones that I'd be sweating.
I get the consternation. I do. But I go back to last year when there was a lot of consternation about Darius, Ja Joyner, Ariante Ursary, and Minnesota was able to find a way to keep all of them. And that's the thing for people to know is if, I'll call it stupid money comes in, I mean, life-changing $500,000, $1 million comes in, it is what it is at that point. And if that young man decides he wants to go chase that and go get something else, I don't blame him. But I would tell you with the things that Dinkytown Athletes is doing, Minnesota's NIL collective, they're running $1 million match campaign right now, which I've heard is going incredibly, incredibly well. that's where, you just talked to Coy. He had opportunities from Ohio State, Ohio State's athletic director has come out and said, we have a $20 million NIL budget.
Wow.
If you don't think that there was some money thrown his way initially in the high school recruiting process, he's turned down that. Now, Minnesota is going to be able to, there's a lot of people that want to see Coy Parrish here.
Yeah.
He's got quite the following from the city of Esco that comes down to every home game. I know there was quite a few of them that were in Champaign. And he has a chance to, in my mind, in the decade plus I've been doing this, I haven't seen a player become as popular with casual fans, hardcore fans, or just one of us fans as Coy Parrish has been. I think
since Ron Johnson or Ernie Wheelwright.
Yeah, Ernie Wheelwright.
Or maybe Assad Abdul Khalik. It's one of those three.
Is Dejan McKnight in the mix here somewhere down the line?
No, but I think Brian McKnight is.
But that's where even just being able to see him win the USC game, going up, getting that interception.
The vertical, though.
But to see him after the game be on the shoulders of fans, and you can see it in his face. He is living his dream, and where he's one of us here, and everybody loves him, and everybody wants to support that kid. And so that's where I can assure you that Fleck and Dinkytown athletes, they're well aware of what Darius Taylor and Coy Parrish's perceived values are going to be.
Yeah.
Are they likely to be the highest one in the market for them? No. But I think they can make very competitive offers and say, you've already had a lot of success here. Why leave if we can make you a competitive offer?
Lastly, you are a voter for the Heisman Trophy, correct?
That is true.
Okay, I'm not trying to sway your vote or anything, and this is going to be a almost completely uninformed opinion.
Okay.
Because I've seen the Miami kid on TV. I've seen a lot of them on TV via highlights, but with Family Weekend at Folsom Stadium at Boulder a couple of weeks ago, and knowing Pat Shurmur the way I do, talking to Pat Shurmur, their offensive coordinator for the Buffaloes, I know I get the hash mark bit in college football. To have a coordinator explain to you setting up plays on whatever down and distance for that hash mark thing and what you can do with speed against certain corners and certain teams, it was one of the more fascinating football conversations I've ever had in my life. And I'm not an ever or never kind of guy. I'm like, yeah, they're farther apart, but wow, holy cow, so much goes into that hash mark bit, at least offensively. Secondly, I'd never seen Travis Hunter play in person.
That's what it looks like, right?
Well, you follow it closer than me, man. Yep. He's draft worthy next year, right?
I think it's one more year.
Okay.
I think he's.
It's top. What I saw is top 5.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking receiver. I'm talking catch the ball, set somebody up, make a quick move. There's Percy Harvin up and down with this kid the way he plays offensively.
He's going to be in next year's draft.
Yep. He's top 5.
Okay.
Don't you think?
He is a unicorn. He is something we haven't seen.
He ain't playing both ways in the NFL. Which way would it go?
Well, you tell me.
Wow, he might then.
Well, which way? Which way would you play him?
I was so infatuated with the way he played offensively. Then they got this Jimmy cat who wears number 5, who's unbelievably fast.
Jimmy Horn, right?
Jimmy Horn. Yeah.
Does that kill his stock a bit if you are just drilling him down to a singular position?
I'm just saying what I saw live. I've never seen in college foot. I saw Antoine Randall, I think, play the Gophers, and he's the greatest college football player I've ever seen live in my life. Wow. I watched him throw a touchdown pass, have an interception, return a punt like 40 yards. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Well, Hunter moved me that way.
I hate how the Heisman Award has kind of just become a quarterback award, and that's where guys like Travis Hunter or even Ashton Jeanty from Boise State
be different.
That's where I'm well aware of how talented and how gifted he is on both sides of the ball. He has done things this season or even just since he's been at Colorado that we haven't seen in a long time. You look at where would Colorado, where would Colorado be without him? Now, they got Shedeur Sanders, and he's very, very gifted.
That whole thing's too shiny for me, man.
But the way
Lauren Sapp on the sideline, just the people they bring in with them. It's aggressive.
But I think to your point with Heisman stuff, now we'll see what it comes down to. But is Travis Hunter someone I'm absolutely considering putting on my ballot and voting for? You're gosh darn right. Is
different.
Or Ashton Jeanty at Boise State, one of the best, if not the best tailback in college football?
Yep.
He is carrying that team to places they haven't seen since a long time. So, you've got Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel, and there's other guys in the mix. But yeah, Travis Hunter and what he has been able to do on both sides of the ball, I think is certainly Heisman worthy.
Well, and in closing part 9 is when my daughter was a freshman or sophomore, we went to a Colorado-Washington State game before Deion. I mean, we got tickets family weekend for $15 each, and I sat at the 40-yard line in like the 25th row.
Sure.
And it wasn't close to sold out. I mean, what Deion Sanders has done with that city, that campus, that state, it's unbelievable. You know, and I brought this up to a couple of people. I don't think people are thinking about this. When his kids, Shador and Shiloh, leave, I mean, do you think Deion will leave too? That's aggressive if he leaves.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me with anything with that, especially if Hunter and his kids leave.
Yeah,
but
unless you're Shermer and you're the next head coach.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. But even with, like, I think Nordo's referencing Hunter's draft stock. I mean, I think that's going to be something you guys are going to be talking about for months. Is there will be scouts on both sides saying, "Oh, I think his ceiling is higher at receiver. I think his ceiling is higher at corner." Now, I would be shocked if he can do both ways in the NFL.
Correct.
You know, they're the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
It's not happening.
So what side he ends up going on will be fascinating to see. And you mentioned Deion's...
It'll be offense.
You mentioned Deion's impact on that university. And I think about even what Fleck has done with the students here. Because
Big time.
I remember back when I used to go to school at the University of Minnesota, that student section wasn't great.
Yep.
And now that I've been at every home game this year, I mean, the North Carolina bit they lose, Iowa they lose. And yet the student section is the first thing packed, both levels, every single week. And so I even think what Fleck has been able to do in kind of vitalizing that student base
Big time.
is one of the under-talked about parts of the atmosphere that is now going on at Huntington Bank Stadium.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's do it more frequently, okay?
You know how to get a hold of me.
Ryan Burns, Bo Hunting Burnsie on KFAN, part of Gopher Illustrated, gopherillustrated.com. And Bo Hunting Burnsie, nice enough to join us in studio. Mr. Nordquist, nice enough to give away some cash.
Yeah, the fan, along with 2 men in a junk truck, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. KFAN.com. The keyword is cash. Go to KFAN.com. You might win $1,000 with the keyword cash.
Fan.
Hey, some coach cuts as part of a shorty here for the next 4 or 5 minutes. I just wanted to hit some audio from the coordinators who spoke to the media yesterday. We were at TCO and Flores was at the podium, PA.
Yeah.
And he had this to say specifically on Dallas Turner.
You know, Dallas is the next guy in. He went in, you know, played well. Gink said he was ready to go back in. And we've just, you know, kept the same kind of grouping, you know, for the remainder of the game. And Dallas did a few good things as well. So, again, you know, that's a deep room. There's a lot of good players in there. And, you know, by and large, we'll go with the hot hand.
Gink was not in as much late as you would expect him to be. I read a tweet earlier, I believe it was young Alec Lewis, that Van Ginkel was battling something at the end of the game. It wasn't specified. We'll check the injury report later. But I do believe that is the main reason Andrew Van Ginkel was not getting those snaps. And Dallas mostly came through. So they also Gabriel Murphy, that undrafted edge guy who had a lot of steam in the preseason.
Yeah,
he's eligible to play. So he's like left that injury window or whatever. But that's something I think either people know now or they will learn to practice today.
Here's Wes Phillips talking about TJ Hawkinson and getting him back.
Just good to have him back. You know, we were keeping track of his rep count throughout. We didn't necessarily have a set number, but we didn't want him, you know, to overload him in his first game back. I think he felt it a little bit. Just getting back into real football and that kind of shape, but it was good to have him out there. He did some good things, and I think that'll continue.
TJ's beloved, and I guess I didn't realize how popular he was with the fan base, and shame on me. But like when he ran out for the pregame warm-ups, an hour for 50 minutes ahead of the game, he got a standing ovation when they put him on the Jumbotron.
Did they introduce the offense or defense?
I believe the defense.
Okay.
But Hawkinson, every time they put his face up on the board, like during the stretches, Crowd went nuts.
That's awesome.
He played at Iowa, so therefore that the proximity's close. But fans were super happy to see him back.
And that was one of, during Fan Line, too, is a lot of people asking, like, what was that impact, right? And jokingly earlier, Josh Oliver trying to take TJ Hawkinson's money. That's not really the case. But just kind of seeing him and then hearing it from Phillips that there was a direct plan to ease him back into the mix. I think he was on a stationary bike at times behind the bench, just trying to stay hot. So I got one more for you here. Matt Daniels talking yesterday. This is prior to the announcement of the signings, but what it was like losing both your kicker and your long snapper at the same time.
It's tough. It's tough, especially when it's at the kicker and really the kicker and the snapper position, because that kind of is that kind of requires the most kind of being in sync for the most part. So luckily, Mr. Wright is a pretty good communicator, and we'll kind of lean on him to be able to kind of help out. Depending on who the snapper is, hopefully we find a guy that does a great job of communicating and kind of able to show some leadership in that room.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's almost unfathomable that you lose both in the same week.
It's insane.
Fortunately, you come at it from 6-2 and against certainly a couple of beatable teams on the horizon in Jacksonville and Tennessee. Don't leave. We'll be right back.
I can't wait.
Thank you very much for listening to the 9 to noon presentation today. We are back at it tomorrow when we rise and shine at 9. And Ben Lieber is on the radio show tomorrow, likewise for Russo Radio, joining us from the West Coast. Nordo will produce. I will be the host, and that'll be a day in advance of a Friday football feast at Buffalo Wild Wings Elk River. PA in charge, Buffalo Wild Wings Elk River, coming up this Friday.
Those ones on the fringes of the metro area, you've mentioned it for years with Monticello. Elk River's got to be a little bit like that, too, where it's kind of a party vibe, as it's close enough to the metro where people can, they're coming down from Big Lake, et cetera. That's got to be fun.
Perfectly described. And a dear friend of mine, Andy Pothen, lives up there, so I get a chance to see him at this Buffalo Wild Wings.
His dad was emailing me about the trade deadline.
Oh, he was.
Big conversations with Mark the last couple of days.
And I'm sure he's very kind with his approach.
Oh, he's awesome.
Just like his son. Thank you for listening. Time for Nordo to put a wrap on the shop.
Big boy's back. Now, what did I do wrong?
Hey.
Same start every day, street beater, the warning. And man, I must say, it's a beautiful morning. Will it into existence. Gotta say it aloud. And I swear the sun's shining behind those clouds. All day sweating the TV ticker, of course. I'm talking about the Vikes kicker. They signed John Parker Romo and Old Man McQuaid. Problem solved, on to Jacksonville to get paid. Wild in a rush to the West Coast after last night. Not much for which to boast. They'll smack the Sharks and Ducks. It's not like they're cursed, even though they got Fiala late in the first. Tomorrow we're back here in this joint, Lieber in studio, tossing in maybe some pressure points. We're always keeping it cool, nobody flipping their lids, and another episode of Skull Stories for Kids.
Here we go,
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.